Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Chase Freedom Unlimited, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Crown Royal.
Good morning and welcome to week 9. We've made it past the halfway mark. This is Fantasy Football Live. Joining me this week in our virtual studio is Andy Behrens from Chicago, Tank Williams from San Francisco, and betting analyst Minty Betts live from Las Vegas. Matt Harmon is not in studio this week, but we will hear a bit from him later in the show. As I said, we are halfway through the fantasy season, for most leagues anyway, and who's on your radar as a player who could really be a difference maker in the second half? Andy, talk to me.
Oh, well, I think we're going to learn some things today about the Colts backfield, right? That split between Jordan Wilkins and Jonathan Taylor. It sure looked like Jordan Wilkins leapfrogged him in the backfield hierarchy last week. Took 20 carries, performed reasonably well. It's a lousy matchup this week. I'm not really expecting a lot from either player, but if Wilkins actually falls into a dozen or more touches each week, he's going to, without question, be a fantasy factor.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Tank, who are you hoping manages to emerge over this back half of the season?
Well, actually, I don't have him in any of my lineups, but Josh Allen, I feel like whenever I talk trash about dude, he actually plays well, and then when I stop talking about him, he blows up and ends up doing the stuff that I expect him to do, and that's not throwing touchdowns and just kind of looking nasty on the field, but this is the opportunity for him to totally redeem himself against the Seattle Seahawks. Let's see what's cooking today.
Absolutely. The matchup here is prime for Allen. Me, I am still holding out hope for Marquise Brown. He only caught one ball in week 8, but at least it was in the end zone, right? I mean, he's been vocal this week about his lack of involvement in the offense. And even though Dez Bryant, we're going to hear that name, is now theoretically in the mix, I'm optimistic that Hollywood and Lamar will get onto the same page, especially as the Ravens set their sights on the postseason. Minty, we've seen some pretty big spreads at the sportsbook as of late, but what trends really stick out to you after 8 weeks?
Well, after 8 weeks, we know that betting against the Cowboys and the Jets are very profitable. In just the last 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of underdogs cash in, not only against the spread, but winning outright. But I think this week we can see the favorites take it back.
Interesting. Okay, so don't forget, we're here to help you get your lineup set. So send your roster questions on Twitter at Yahoo Fantasy using the AskFFL hashtag, or drop a question in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can on the show. Plus, our very own Scott Pianowski is responding to questions live on Twitter as we speak. Turning our attention to the injury report now. We've got some big names returning to the fold this week as Christian McCaffrey and Michael Thomas are finally rejoining their teams. Antonio Brown will make his Bucs debut against the Saints. More on him a little later in the show. And not listed here, but someone to keep an eye on. Dez Bryant, as I mentioned a little earlier, will join the Ravens to play in his first game in nearly 3 years. Now let's look at who's already been ruled out for week 9. As reported earlier this week, Kenny Golladay will miss today's game with a hip injury. Giants running back Devonta Freeman is still nursing that ankle and is also out. Kenyon Drake is considered week to week and won't play against Miami today. And Seattle running back Chris Carson will not go against the Bills. The latest now from the inactives list this morning. Woo, there's a lot to get through. Falcons receiver Calvin Ridley is inactive today. The Falcons had planned to test his ankle injury pregame, and it looks like he won't go against the Broncos. Matthew Stafford was activated from the reserved COVID list yesterday after a positive test for COVID-19 earlier in the week, but his test came back negative this morning, so he will suit up in Minnesota. Keenan Allen will suit up this afternoon against the Raiders. He was added to the injury report yesterday with an illness, but Adam Schefter reports he'll play. In that same game, Josh Jacobs is also expected to go after missing practice on Thursday. Finally, Ezekiel Elliott. He's still listed as questionable for the Cowboys' home matchup against Pittsburgh. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Zeke looked good at Saturday's workout and has a good chance to play if there are no game day setbacks.
All right, over under number 1. It's a fun one, too. It's a pretty aggressive one. Justin Herbert, breakout star for the Chargers. 2.5 passing touchdowns this week against the Raiders. I waffled on this a little bit because it is such an aggressive number. I mean, he's got to throw 3 touchdown passes, but he's actually done this in each of his last 4 games. The matchup this week, the Raiders have only allowed 11 passing TDs on the season, but they are 25th overall against the pass. They give up plenty of yards. And we've seen Herbert already overcome some of the most difficult matchups in fantasy, right? He got to the Chiefs, he got to the Bucks. He can get to the Raiders too. I am taking the over. Minty, do you agree?
Wow, yes, you are right that Justin Herbert has completed over 3 or average 3 passing touchdowns in his last 4 games, but I'm going against all these numbers and saying under 2.5 passing touchdowns. I think the Raiders will step up their defense, especially after their win in Cleveland. I think they'll pressure Justin Herbert, so give me the under here.
Tank, break the tie.
I mean, see, Rev, you gave us all the analysis. Like, you told us about Justin Herbert going over this number the last 4 games. I know the only quarterback that has gone over on the Raiders is Tom Brady, so I had to look for a sign. In 2006, the Chargers signed Clipboard Jesus. He didn't do anything for him. In 2020, they draft touchdown Jesus, Justin Herbert. This dude stays hot. We going over.
Yeah, there it is. That's the way we want to start. We want to start with enthusiastic overs.
We are going to take that positive momentum and turn our attention to the fantasy freebies for the week. These are players who are not widely started in Yahoo leagues, but could do some damage for fantasy managers. Andy, who do you have up first? Oh, give me this person. Give it to me, Andy. I'm so excited for this guy.
Yeah, it's 2020. What the hell? Let's go, Drew Lock. It's not always a clinic necessarily with Drew Lock at the controls of an offense, but it's pretty fun, right? He's got fantasy tangibles and intangibles. He's throwing the ball 40+ times per week. And this week, it's Atlanta. This is just about the friendliest defense for fantasy purposes out there. They allow the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. It's 300+ passing yards pretty much every week unless you're Teddy Bridgewater. I think Locke is a great start here. He gets Tim Patrick back in this one, his number 1 receiver. He's got Jerry Jeudy. Noah Fant is going to go off in this game. I like Drew Lock to throw for about 320, maybe 330, and a couple of scores.
Well, the only thing that could be better is Dave Chappelle doing an impression of Drew Lock dancing in celebration. Tank, who do you have for us?
I'm going with that man, John Smoke Brown. Now, we've already known about the Seattle secondary, but I think some people may have forgotten about Smoke. Now, when this dude is healthy, he's hell on DBs, and guess what? Smoke is getting healthy, and they going against the Seattle Seahawks. And now I understand that Josh Allen hasn't been that dude that we saw at the beginning of the season, but the only quarterback who hasn't gotten busy against Seattle is that dude, Jimmy G. So I'm expecting Josh Allen to come out, do what he do, which means that Smoke is going to smoke the hell out of some Seattle secondary DBs today.
Oh, I like that call a lot as well. I want to talk about Logan Thomas. I understand that the tight end has been frustratingly erratic over the course of the season, but mind blow emoji with Kyle Allen under center for a full 8 quarters. He has found the end zone in back-to-back weeks. He's widely available, probably because of the timing of his bye. And this week, he gets the Giants, who, if Tank was talking about smoking, Rob Gronkowski smoked last Monday night, coming off a short week. I like Thomas as a low-end tight end starter. Time now for fantasy football weapons presented by Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can build the legend of a Viking Raider. This new game features dual-wielding combat by pairing 2 different weapons together to take on enemies. So in that spirit, we are selecting fantasy combinations, or stacks, and the visceral Viking weapons they represent from Assassin's Creed. Here's Matt Harmon with his Week 9 picks.
All right, let's dive into some quarterback wide receiver stacks here with our Assassin's Creed arsenal. And first up, we've got Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs as the flail and the light bow. Ride with me here on this one because this actually makes a lot of sense. Our historians for Assassin's Creed tell us that the flail is the chief tactical value of the flail. The chief virtue of it was its capacity to strike around a defender's shield or parry. And that makes a lot of sense for Josh Allen, right? I mean, is there any quarterback in the NFL that's just kind of flailing around out there doing weird stuff? But you know what, in the end, kind of gets around your defense. I know it hasn't happened for Josh Allen in fantasy in a while, but think about this. They're playing the Seattle Seahawks this week. It happens for everyone that goes against the Seattle Seahawks, who rank bottom 5 in sack rate and have the 30th defense in passing DVOA. And it works for Josh Allen because he's got Stephon Diggs, the light bow. Now, the light bow, because of its size, accommodates rapid knocking and firing of multiple arrows in succession. Yeah, has anyone been peppered with targets in rapid fire succession quite like Stephon Diggs as the Bills' #1 receiver? I don't think so. And I think that these two guys, this stack is finally going to come back to the top of the leaderboards in a high-scoring, high-flying game against the Seattle Seahawks this week. If you have been kind of fading these guys in their sort of slow weeks the last few outings, I think you go right back to them here. Let's jump into our second stack here, and it's Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk. That's right, not DeAndre Hopkins, but Christian Kirk. And again, ride with me. This one makes a lot of sense. Kyler Murray is going to be our sax here, and the sax is an Old English word for knife. In modern archaeology, the historians tell us, the term sax is used specifically for a type of small sword, a knife, or dagger. And that is Kyler Murray, not because of the small part, the dagger thing. Look at Kyler Murray, what he does on the field. It doesn't matter if you have a perfect defense, okay? Like, you could be in great coverage, you could have it all working together, and you might actually be defending their passing game well. Teams have done that at times, but Kyler Murray and those scrambles, just a dagger here, a dagger there. He just works it down the field and ends up putting up monster fantasy outings. This guy's been a top 5 quarterback all year. And yeah, he's facing a tough matchup here, theoretically, against the Miami Dolphins, who rank 6th in passing DVOA right now. But they play a ton of man coverage. They're way more man coverage than almost any defense in the entire NFL. And we know that historically, this is my history telling you this, scrambling quarterbacks absolutely destroy man coverage defense because the cornerbacks turn their back to the quarterback. Now, let's go to Christian Kirk. Like I said, we're not talking about DeAndre Hopkins here. That's obvious. You don't need the great Norse history to tell you that DeAndre Hopkins is good, but you do need it for Christian Kirk and the torch. And this one's pretty simple, folks. Not much here. He's the torch because he's been on fire. Over the last 3 games for the Arizona Cardinals, he has 18 targets, 4 touchdowns, 16.8 yards per catch. And yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be on the field, probably drawing a lot of coverage from Byron Jones, who's been a difference maker for this Miami Dolphins defense when he's been on the field. I think Kirk could see some more advantageous matchups there. So if you want to be frisky, you want to be different, stack Christian Kirk with Kyler Murray against these Dolphins, get the daggers, have the torch, lighting your way to a big fantasy performance. So make sure you get those guys in your lineup, and more importantly, be sure to check out Assassin's Creed Valhalla, available on November 10th on Xbox Series X, S, and Xbox One.
Thank you, Matt. Now it's time to get to some of those roster questions so that your fantasy team doesn't look like a Viking funeral. Don't forget to use the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from Scott Nunez. He asked John Brown, DJ Chark, Chris Godwin. He needs to sit one of these guys. A little bit concerned about the timing of the night game. Tank, you and I tend to have a mind meld situation. I want to see, I know who I would pick, but I want to see who you would pick in this situation.
Well, obviously I'm going with my man Smoke Brown. He's the automatic for me. Now you have to look at DJ Chark and Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin's going to be back. He's dealing with that finger. They're going to be dealing with a little bit of weather in Tampa Bay as well. And then you have DJ Chark, who's going with an unknown, a young quarterback. I think in this one, if I have to choose, I mean, I guess I must go with Godwin, I guess, even though I really don't like him this week. I just don't know what to expect out of this young quarterback in Jacksonville. So with that being said, I go with the safer play with more upside with Godwin, even though he's dealing with that finger and the weather.
Oh, you're talking about upside. I'm going to go with DJ Chark because Jake Luton is going to push the field down, push the ball downfield more. At least that's the report. So while I'm with you on John Brown, I'm feeling this whole Jacksonville situation. But Tank is right. If you want the floor option, then Chris Godwin is certainly the safer of these two. Tweet number 2. This one is for Minty. Minty Kyle wants to know the Chargers giving 1.5 or the Raiders.
Ooh, so actually there's been some line movement. The Chargers opened at almost 3-point favorites. Now they're 1-point underdogs. I lean the Raiders here, but it makes me super nervous because of that line move. That means everyone's on the Raiders. They are 5-1 against the spread on the road, so that's why I lean the Raiders, but I am not betting this game. And I suggest if you're not comfortable betting it, you don't bet it either. It's going to be a tight game.
Andy, last one is for you. It is from Devin, and he has a wide open flex spot. Who should he start in it? Corey Davis, Le'Veon Bell, Jerry Jeudy, or Hollywood Brown?
These are fun options. I like Jerry Jeudy this week. I'm actually going to go Hollywood Brown here. I always buy the #1 receiver in a week after he has complained about workload, right? He had the touchdown that saved his week just a week ago. I think he's going to get right back to that 6 to 8 target range. Lamar Jackson has talked about it repeatedly this year, how they need to get things going with Brown. I think it happens in this one.
Hollywood. All right, it's time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, 7-time Pro Bowler Andre Johnson joins Tank to talk wide receivers. Does he think DK Metcalf is one of the league's best? Find out when we come back. Welcome back. It's time now for this week's NFL Royalty Check-In with Crown Royal. Our resident tailgater, Tank Williams, caught up with Pro Bowl wide receiver Andre Johnson this week to get his take on some of the NFL's top players at the position.
Now this week, our Crown Royal Sports Royalty special guest is none other than former Houston Texans wide receiver Andre Johnson. Dre, appreciate you joining me, man.
Appreciate you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it, man. Let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins. This dude leads the NFL with 57 receptions, 704 receiving yards. That's only in 7 games. So dude's been balling out, one of the top wide receivers in the league. But I want to get your opinion on how people should look forward to the next 5 games that they play. He's going to have to face Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, Tre'Davious White, Stephon Gilmore, Jalen Ramsey. Should we discount his production moving forward, or is he just one of those guys that it doesn't matter what the matchup, he's going to ball out regardless?
I don't think it really matters with him about the matchup. I've had a chance to see DeAndre grow as a player. You know, I actually was his teammate, for a couple years. So I don't think there's a guy in the league that catches more contested balls than he does. Guys will be all over him, and some way or another he finds a way to, to make the catch. So the guys he will be going against will be tough, opponents. But me knowing him, still being in contact with him a lot, man, he's up for the challenge. So I'll be looking forward to it.
All right, so y'all listen to that. Don't trade high. Keep that cat on your lineup. Now, another dude I want to talk about is Will Fuller. Like, all of a sudden, this dude has been a consistent producer. And I don't know if because he's finally healthy this year, or is it that the target's freed up now that DeAndre Hopkins is in Arizona, or if it's just the simple fact that he's taking his game to the next level, or is it all of the above? Like, what have you seen in his game that has made him, become one of these star consistent players, not only in the NFL and in fantasy football, which has some people saying that Green Bay should go out and get him?
Yeah, I think the thing with Will is that he's been bitten by an injury bug a lot, early in his career. I think the biggest thing, if you look at it, when he plays, he finds the end zone. He's played in 6 of the 7 games, and he's scored just about in every game he's played in. So, I think the biggest thing for him was just, being healthy.
Yeah, and so another guy I want to talk about, too, is DK Metcalf. So I was with Tennessee. I got drafted by the Titans in 2002. So I remember when you came into the league in 2003, a big physically imposing receiver. I mean, you're one of the guys that we always had to make sure we playing for since we had to play y'all twice a year. And so now DK, started off his career really well last year, then he's just kind of taken off now. I mean, do you feel like just with this small sample size that we have, is that he's already one of the best wide receivers in the league, or does he have to show us more?
I think what he's done in this short period of time, I think you can make a case to argue about it. Man, the guy's a freak. Just seeing what he's done, even running Buda Baker down, those are things you can't teach. You just either have it or you don't. And he has something special in him. And he seems like he has the work ethic. So I think he can only get better. I don't see him dropping off.
Yeah, now tell me this. How have you been virtually tailgating this season with Crown Royal?
Ordering a few different spreads from some of the local restaurants here in Houston, man. Having a few Crown Royal cocktails and a few water breaks.
Nah, I hear you, man. So we appreciate you for coming on, talking a little fantasy and ball with us. And for more tips on how to crown your game day, make sure you visit Crown Royal on Instagram.
It's Fantasy Face-Off time, and this week Andy and I are going head-to-head on every position and debating some similarly ranked players. We'll start round one under center with a pair of former teammates in Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater. Andy, start us off. Your thoughts on the current Saints quarterback situation?
Yeah, I am going Drew Brees here. It's close. I get it. He's got a little bit of a shoulder thing. We're worried about that. But he finally, for the first time since week one, has his full complement of receivers. We get Michael Thomas back. We get Emmanuel Sanders back from the COVID list. He's got Alvin Kamara. We're fully operational here. Again, except for his shoulder. The matchup isn't great, but this guy's averaged 271 and 2 touchdowns per game without those players.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Teddy because, believe it or not, Vegas has the projected point total higher for the matchup against Kansas City than this week one rematch between Tampa Bay and and New Orleans. Obviously, the matchup, I think, here is better for Teddy Bridgewater. We know he's going to be chasing points. And if you're talking about getting weapons back, well, hello, CMC is returning. And we know he is not just any running back. Next up, we are going to talk about running backs. We'll go with David Johnson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I will go first and talk about the Chiefs rookie. I have, in full disclosure, these players basically back-to-back in my ranking. So it's by a sliver, though, I'm going to choose Clyde Edwards-Helaire because, frankly, while I love David Johnson's matchup, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a special player, and I can imagine him, a player who is averaging 5.3 yards per touch, ripping off some nice chunk gains, and I just don't see that happening for David Johnson. So I'll give talent the tiebreaker here.
Oh, yeah. I normally go that route, and I agree with you. These two are pretty close in my ranks as well. But listen, David Johnson gets an absolutely full workload, right? Last 4 games, it's 18-plus touches for him. He gets a matchup with Jacksonville. They allow about 4.5 yards per carry. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing rushers. The matchup is just too good. The workload is too significant. Edwards-Helaire, he's playing just barely over 50% of the snap for Kansas City.
Two good options if you have either of them. Go ahead and start them. Now let's turn our attention to some flex questions. Andy, what are you seeing out there from fantasy managers?
Yeah, a little make your pick time, and the questions today are complex. They're complicated. I've seen them in advance, and I gotta warn you, Tank. We got like 5 guys in each of these things. This first one, a perfect example. Yvette, she's got good options here too. Needs to, for flex spots, Antonio Brown, Antonio Gibson, Robbie Anderson, Chase Claypool. Man, I like all these options. Do you dare go with the double Antonio lineup?
I do not. I don't know what to expect out of Antonio Brown. There's a lot of weapons in Tampa, and I'm not gonna waste all my talking points on AB now because we're gonna talk about him a little bit later. But I will go Antonio Gibson. I like what I've seen out of him. I think that Carolina's gonna be in a shootout, and I can guarantee targets for Robbie Anderson. I don't know if I can do the same for Claypool because there's so many weapons in Dallas, and that game may get ugly fast. So I'm gonna go Antonio Gibson, Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, I fully agree with this, actually. I could talk myself into Chase Claypool maybe if I thought I was a huge underdog and I needed the upside of like a potential 2-touchdown game. But you're right. The downside is he gets targeted twice and it's like 20 yards. So I fully agree on these two calls. So next question here comes to us from Bubba M. Huckleberry. Thanks for reaching out, Bubba.
Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Before you go, hold on. Just say that name one more time.
That's Bubba M. Huckleberry. Not sure what the M is for, but I'd love to know. 2 flex spots needed here. It's Justin Jackson, it's Leonard Fournette, it's DJ Chark. Talked about him a little bit earlier. Philip Lindsay or Zach Moss. For me, full PPR, it's going to be those first 2 options. Justin Jackson, to me, is a fairly easy call. He's coming off a huge workload. He gets a relatively friendly matchup against the Raiders. I like him here. He's going to see 20 touches in this one. And then we think Leonard Fournette may have surged ahead of Ronald Jones due to Jones's ball security issues. We know they're going to throw to Fournette a little bit as well, so there's a little bit of PPR upside. I could talk myself into Chark, but I think I'm going with the 2 safe volume running back.
Man, I would just say this, like, if you want a good answer out of me, please have like a kind of mild like screen name. Like, I've been messed up ever since I heard the M. Huckleberry. But I will say this, if Philip Lindsay is healthy, which I think he is, the Denver Broncos need to get it together because he's their most explosive back. He's their best back, I think. And that matchup against Atlanta is magically delicious. I think if he gets a full tote, he can get busy today.
Yeah, here's hoping we get this one right because I want to hear from Bubba again. That was awesome. Okay, last question we're gonna take here. This one is from Diego, and it's another tough one with good options. Diego needs 2: Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Chase Claypool again, DJ Moore, Corey Davis. He used the hashtag AskFFL. How do you feel about this one, Tank?
Man, actually, the last time Brandon Cooks went against Jacksonville, dude got busy. So I think it's hard to sit him in a matchup where the Houston Texans should come out and smash. Mike Evans, I mean, he usually gets most of the air yards in Tampa. There's projected winds of like 20 miles per hour there, plus you have a lot of weapons. So I don't know if I can lean on him. I think I go back to that same theory that we were talking about with Robbie Anderson, where DJ Moore is going to be locked in for probably like 8+ targets in this matchup against Kansas City. So I'll go Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore.
Yeah, we have unusual agreement here. I'm going to go the same route. I think this is a blow-up spot for Brandon Cooks, right? That Jacksonville defense has been terrible against both the run and pass. Cooks seen a ton of targets lately, and I think DJ Moore, again, pretty easy call in a game where we know Carolina is going to be chasing points. All right, keep those questions coming on all social platforms. Use the hashtag AskFFL.
Bubba M. Huckleberry.
Let's switch gears from huckleberries and talk last-minute sleepers who could do some fantasy damage. This week, I've got 2 receivers. I'm going to start first with Marvin Hall. Listen, Kenny Golladay is out, and should that mean that you start Marvin Jones because of a more volume, theoretically, or even Danny Amendola? Sure, but it's 2020. We're not playing it safe anymore, baby. No, thank you. How about the lid lifter who showed off his deep play ability last week, converting 4-7 for 113 when Golladay went out in Week 8, plus the matchup, oh my goodness, against these Vikings. You want to talk about a Viking funeral? Light the pyre for this secondary. They have allowed the second most receptions over 40 yards at 7. That is perfect for what Marvin Hall can do. So, ceiling flex. And you want another one? Let's say Hall isn't your flavor. Fine. How about Darryl Mooney? Tall shouts, by the way, to Andy Behrens, who put Mooney on the radar last week. And what did he do? Oh, he played a season-high 93% of the snaps. He's been becoming more and more involved every week. He has scored in back-to-back games right now. And do we like the matchup? We sure do against that Titans defense that's allowed the 4th most receiving scores on the season and is giving up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers.
All right, let's talk about a few of our favorite player props for Week 9. These are from our good friends over at BetMGM. Why don't we start with an actual certified betting expert, Minty? What do you like this week?
Oh my goodness, I'm honored. My favorite player prop this week is going to be Teddy Bridgewater under 277.5 passing yards. I mean, he hasn't exceeded 255 in 4 games. He's going up against a tough Chiefs passing defense who are allowing the fewest passing yards per attempt. They're allowing the fewest touchdowns, well, like 9, and they're recording 9 picks. So I like the under here as he's going to have to rely on the ground game a lot, especially that Christian McCaffrey is back now. So the under is the play for me.
Yeah, I like that call. Okay, Tank, make us a little money.
Man, I'm going James Conner at over 78.5 rush yards against who? The Dallas Cowboys, yo. Like, whenever I see Dallas Cowboys these days, I'm hammering the over. And this dude, I mean, the matchup is lovely. Kenyon Drake ran for 164 against him. Antonio Gibson had 128. Now, we know the Eagles going to get their eagle on, but Boston Scott even had 70. So you know these Steelers are going to come up in here and stump a mud hole in the Cowboys, and James Conner is going to be the major beneficiary of that.
Oh, I like it. Okay, I think I'm the first person this season to just let it ride on a bet that he had the week prior. I'm going right back to Nick Foles. Won that bet last week on Nick Foles throwing an interception, and oh, it's out there for me again, just sitting there. I know it's a little pricier this time, but half an interception? Are you kidding me? He's literally thrown at least 1 interception in every game this season. It is happening today as well. The guy's throwing the ball 40 plus times per week. His offensive line is terrible, and now he's got a couple guys on the COVID list. There is just no question Nick Foles, even if they win, he's throwing at least 1 pick in this one. It's a great money-making opportunity. Now remember, if you feel like taking a chance on any of these player props, sign up today at betmgm.com/Yahoo. New users will receive a 100% match up to $1,000 when you make your first deposit. Must be over 21 in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, or West Virginia. Terms apply. Time for another break here on FFL. When we come back, Tank and Liz will dig in on the top trending players for this morning, and I will attempt to settle some contentious legal challenges that have been posed to me by fantasy managers while wearing the wig of power. We will be right back.
And we're back here on season 15 of FFL. Let's check in on who's trending this morning. We've got a couple of running backs with J.K. Dobbins and DJ Dallas. Also, Tank's cousin Mike is trending. Jerry Jeudy, the presumed number 1, or is he the number 2 in Denver? And Corey Davis. Tank, let's talk about your cousin first. Talk about he has a quarterback that unlocks his skill set, even if he doesn't necessarily see the volume that Keenan Allen receives.
I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't see the volume that Keenan Allen is getting. At the same time, dude had 8 targets last week. He's going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, yeah, they can be a little tougher against the pass, but I think that this is a game that's just set up for a shootout. And I already nicknamed this quarterback, man. That dude is touchdown Jesus. Whether he's throwing touchdowns or running for him, the dude gonna get in the end zone. And so when the offense is scoring that much, I like the probability of him getting his hands on the ball and getting in the end zone. So I really like Mike Williams today. I really like that Raiders-Chargers matchup, especially if you're playing DFS and stacking guys.
Oh, I think that might be a tease for later. For what it's worth, Mike Williams is the Yahoo consensus wide receiver 24 in week 9. Let's also talk DJ Dallas, Tank, because he's coming off of statistically a great week. No Chris Carson, no Carlos Hyde. However, Alex Collins is now in Seattle, and Pete Carroll did say that he felt, quote, very comfortable involving Collins in the mix here. Does that scare you off of Dallas at all?
No, not at all. I mean, Dallas got all the volume last week, and I think Pete was basically saying that, you know, they're familiar with Alex Collins. Alex Collins is familiar with the system, so if they need him, they can go ahead and plug him in. He may get a couple, you know, carries or touches, something like that to kind of spare DJ Dallas, but DJ showed that he can, handle the bulk of the carries last week. He was involved in the pass game. And, man, this matchup right here with Buffalo is magically delicious today. I love it. I love DJ Dallas. And I'm not mentioning him in my DFS stuff later today, but he's only $11. That's the only little hint I'm going to give you. Be wise.
Ooh, a little nugget drop. J.K. Dobbins, last player I want to talk about of this grouping we received. Coming off a big day, but obviously Gus, the bus, still very much involved. Are you prioritizing Dobbins over Edwards?
Oh, man, this is tough. I mean, you never know which one of these running backs to lean on. Like we were talking about last week, I think Dobbins is the most explosive guy. At the same time, I mean, they love to use Gus Edwards in the red zone. I mean, the thing with these two guys today is that the Indianapolis run defense is pretty tough, and these guys are getting healthy. They got Darius Leonard back last week. I think they're kind of rounding the form, and I think this could potentially be like a tough, low-scoring game where both of these defenses flex on the offenses. So I would lower my expectations for either one of these running backs going against this tough Indianapolis Colts run defense.
Very good to mention Darius Leonard, absolutely. Strip sack last week, wow, game changer. We'll continue to keep an eye on the social conversation, and please keep sending questions, and we'll get to more soon.
All right, this week's edition of Fantasy Court, we're going to talk about a crooked commissioner, or at least I'm saying they're probably a crooked commissioner. Our question comes in from Austin, and this is an interesting situation. So Austin says, at the beginning of the season, our commissioner said that if the season gets canceled due to COVID, he'll give everyone their money back. Totally understandable. A lot of leagues did the same thing. Now he's saying that since there have been some COVID players, there will now be no cash prize. Keep in mind, he's 9 of 10 in terms of his place in the standings right now. This is super shady. I think you guys know, if you've watched this segment before, that I allow great latitude for fantasy commissioners. What I really like in a fantasy league is a commissioner with strong opinions who makes decisive judgments. This is really shady. This is really lousy. Literally no one came into this season saying, hey, there's probably not going to be any COVID cases in the NFL. All of us talked about it. It was a clear possibility. We knew we were going to get the normal injuries of an NFL season, plus a variety of players missing due to COVID. No commissioner made that contingency plan. So I don't buy this. I'm sure you had a plan for the season getting shut down. There's no way. This is just like saying, okay, if there's been too many groin injuries this year, there's been too many high ankle sprains, so we can't give out a cash prize. No, I'm not buying it. Luckily, the other members of this league can just work around the commissioner here, and I think that's what needs to happen. That's what I'm going to order you to do, Austin. You just go to the other 8 managers in your league and say, okay, let's leave him out of it. Let's play for the usual cash prize, and then you're probably going to have a mutiny here. You're probably going to have to get rid of this commissioner going into next season. Maybe you can tell them, okay, you want back in, you're going to have to pay that year's league fee, and you're going to have to pay this year's league fee. But come on, go ahead and play for the cash prize that you all agreed to.
And we're back here for another over-under. This time we're looking at the return of AB in prime time. Do we think Antonio Brown goes over or under 4.5 receptions against the New Orleans Saints? I am going to say over. Yeah, Andy made a really good point on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast podcast, and that was the Bucs would not have added Antonio Brown if they were confident in the health of their current receivers. We already know that Chris Godwin is dealing with a finger issue. Also, worth noting, the last time Antonio Brown was on an NFL football field, he played most of his snaps out of the slot, and in week 1, when the Bucs played the Saints, Scotty Miller, their slot receiver, recorded 5 receptions. So yeah, I'm gonna say over in this one. Tank, what about you?
Ooh, Lizzie, I love that sweet music you singing into my ear. I'm going over too because the last time AB was on the field, like you said, he had 8 targets, 4 catches from Tommy Boy. Now, we know Mike Evans is their air yards guy. It's supposed to be windy in Tampa Bay, mind you, so Mike Evans is the air yards guy. We have Chris Godwin coming back with a finger. I don't know how much he's going to play. Even Scotty Miller was limited all week in practice. So one thing that I feel teams have learned that whenever you have Mr. Big Chest out on the field, you better maximize that opportunity while you can because you don't know how long he's going to be out there. So he's going to get those catches. He's going to get those targets. Over.
Ain't nothing but truth there, Tank. Minty, are you feeling the big chest too?
No, I actually really like the under here. Now, I know that, in AB's prime, he's recorded at least 5 receptions a game, but this is his first game back in a while. Tom Brady has been great at spreading the ball around and running the ball, so I don't actually think we'll see AB a lot on the field this week. It might be an unpopular opinion, but yeah, I'm going under here, 4.5.
Ooh, Minty to play spoiler. All right, what's up next?
Minty is such a buzzkill. She always ends our opportunities for fantasy sweeps and over-unders. Now we're going to talk about a handful of players who are going to be off their game. These are heavily started players in Yahoo leagues that we don't expect much from this week. Liz, why don't you get us started?
Well, Tank has already talked about the wins in Tampa Bay. I've got to talk about Mike Evans coming out of an over-under segment about AB where I said AB would go over. Listen, when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have both been on the field, AB notwithstanding, Mike Evans has only drawn an average of 3 targets, 1.5 catches, and under 13 yards. Lattimore has consistently owned Evans. He did it in week 1. He did it in 2019. I do not like Evans in this matchup.
Tank, who's going to faceplant here?
Man, Jonathan Taylor, we've been talking about the running back splitting carries in Indianapolis for the past few weeks now, but the thing that alarmed me the most, I was seeing clips of him last week, and instead of running that open lanes on the field, he was running that butt cheeks. I don't know what old boy's seeing out there on the field. I know I said that he looks like a watered-down Saquon Barkley, but now he's still looking like a watered-down Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley's on IR, so, man, if you have faith in Jonathan Taylor, man, you need to get your life together because my boy is not getting it right now.
I'm going to finish us off with what I think is pretty much a layup here, and that is going to be Zeke Elliott this week against Pittsburgh. Let's just set the injury aside, right? He's a little bit dinged. We think he's going to go this week. Even if Zeke was in for his full complement of snaps and touches, I would not like him against a very good Pittsburgh Steelers run defense. Zeke himself has averaged just 3.7 yards per carry over his last 3 games. He's not finding the end zone. This Dallas offense hasn't even scored 10 points in their last 3 games. They're just not putting up points. Zeke is getting a bunch of empty yardage for you. Even if he's healthy and good to go this week, I don't want to mess with him at all. Now let's send it over to Minty to see what she's wagering on this week.
Welcome to week 9 of the NFL, everyone. Let's get through this. Here are my bets for this week. Let's start with the Cardinals hosting the Dolphins. The Cardinals are laying 6 points at home here, and the total set at 48.5. I actually like the Cardinals at home coming off a bye, especially facing this Dolphins team who's traveling from east to west and working with their rookie quarterback under center who really didn't do much in their win against the Rams last week. This Cardinals team is a much improved team. They're 5-2 straight up and against the spread, so give me the Cardinals -6. Let's move on to a very intense rematch for Sunday Night Football between the Saints and the Bucs. This time the Bucs are at home and they're hosting the Saints. They're favored by 4.5 points, and I think this This is going to be a really close game. Both teams should be loaded as both teams are expecting their star receivers to start here. I think the Bucs have the advantage here. They're better on both sides of the ball. I say they win, but Saints cover the 4.5 points. They're 7-1 against the spread as underdogs. So give me the Saints plus the point. And lastly, an ugly matchup for Monday Night Football between the Jets and the Patriots. The Patriots laying 9.5 on the road here and total set at a very low 40.5. I don't trust either teams to cover here, but I do like the under as the Jets offense are only averaging about 12 points per game, completing 56% of their passes, and have only recorded 7 touchdowns this season. The Pats not looking that good, and Cam Newton has recorded 7 picks already. I think he's completing a little over 60% of his passes, and they're averaging about 20 points per game. I like the under here, but I would wait until game day to bet it because 40.5 is pretty low. I expect this total to rise a little bit at 41, 41.5 if we're lucky, then I'll bet the under here. That wraps it up for my best bets for this week. Guys, check out more episodes of Mad Bets on Twitter at Yahoo Sportsbook.
Oh, I can't believe that they gave me the keys to the chat room this week, but they did. I'm excited about it.
Let's get it.
It's going to be me. It's going to be my friend Tank answering some of your questions. You guys are not using the normal volume of emojis, at least I'm not seeing it so far. Maybe that is only to appease Harmon. I would like to see them as well. Got a question here from Xavier. Xavier is wondering, Brandon Cooks or Zach Moss? It's a flex PPR. Tank, are we back on Brandon Cooks here?
Yeah, I'm going Brandon Cooks. I think he's going to get the targets. I think he has a lot of upside. I mean, I love Brandon Cooks in this matchup, so I got to ride with my boy. You with me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Brandon Cooks in a blow-up spot against Jacksonville. Terrible defense. Going to be a huge week for Deshaun Watson. Going to be a huge week for Cooks. I don't even mind Randall Cobb as a start here. Obviously, Fuller's always good. You want basically all elements of the Texans passing game, I think, in this one. Okay, now the emojis are back. Victor wants to know, Chase Claypool or Marvin Jones? Doesn't give us the format in this one, but man, these are 2 touchdown-dependent players, obviously. Claypool in a spectacular matchup against Dallas. But as you said earlier, maybe we only get about 2 quarters of Pittsburgh with the foot on the gas in this one.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the one thing that scares me. But you look at it from the flip side with Detroit, like no Galladay. Like, I understand that Hockenson, your boy Iowa, he may get heavily targeted in this game too. But besides that, like, man, Marvin Jones is set up for the ultimate layup. So I think he continues to get targets, and I really like him better than Claypool just because it's hard to choose which Pittsburgh wide receiver is going to get off, especially in the game where it's kind of leaning towards a James Conner type of flow.
Yeah, I agree. Friendly matchup for Marvin as well. He's kind of a touchdown specialist. I think he probably sees more targets. He's a better bet for targets than Claypool. Let's take another one here. This is from Brendan. A lot of emojis of football, the fire emoji and whatnot. Pick one for flex, Beasley or Phillip Lindsay or Zach Moss. How do you feel about that?
Man, actually, I like Phillip Lindsay, man. Like, we know about this running back narrative against Atlanta. Like, 1, they can't stop him on the ground. But then 2, like, man, they are really bad against pass catcher running backs. The only thing that confuses me is that Denver doesn't use Phillip Lindsay as the pass catcher back. They use Melvin Gordon. So maybe I'm setting you up for failure. Like, if they use Lindsay the right way, it should be him. But maybe I should just go with Moss because, I mean, they're going to be in a shootout. He's their pass-catching back. He seemed like he's gotten, the lion's share that carries over Singletary these days, so maybe that's the guy.
Yeah, I actually like that. I think Moss has looked spectacular over the last couple. Well, okay, maybe spectacular is a little strong. He looks better than Devin Singletary, and they're using him in the right area of the field, right? He trots onto the field when they're in goal-to-go situations, so those are the touches we look for. I'm going to take one last question here. Let's make it a defensive question. We don't do a lot of that. This is from Young T-Dot. Using a whole bunch of unlock emojis. Steelers, oh, this is fun. Steelers D or the New England D this week. They both have great matchups, right? The Steelers get Dallas and something named Garrett Gilbert, and then the New England Patriots are facing the Jets on Monday night. What do you like here?
Who are the Steelers? Who the Steelers got?
Yeah, that's Dallas.
Who they playing? Okay.
Yeah, that's Dallas.
All right. I was just checking. All right.
Yeah, I agree. That's where we got to go. We got a super sketchy quarterback. We got an injured Zeke Elliott. gotta go with Pittsburgh in this one. I think they're probably the.
Bruh, we don't even have to give any details. We don't have to like talk about the quarterback and all the stats and all that. The Pittsburgh Steelers are playing Dallas. Plug in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's well put. It's well put. Okay, time for a quick break here on FFL. But don't forget to catch Liz and me at halftime of the early games. It's going to be roughly 2:30 Eastern time today. We're going to continue the fantasy conversation. Be sure to send your comments and thoughts. We'll look at everything that's going on across the early slate of games. And with that, we'll be right back. All right, final over-under. We're going to look to the Monday night game, and there's not a whole lot of startable fantasy pieces in that one, but we're going to talk about one of them, and it's Damian Harris, running back for the Patriots. Okay, our over-under here is 14.9 fantasy points in this one, and it feels like an aggressive number. Listen, the biggest problem with Harris is that he needs basically to get 100 yards and a touchdown to get this, because they're not going to throw to him. Only a couple of targets so far on the season. He is going to be in positive game script against the Jets. That's nice. I just can't quite bank on that 100 and a touchdown. Again, I think he's startable, but the lack of receptions, I think, keeps him just under this. Minty, you never take an over, so you must be taking the under here as well.
Yeah. We're finally in agreement, Andy. I'm also on the under. I think that is an aggressive number here. He did record a significant amount of yardage, rushing yards, I should say, but only 2 touchdowns this season so far, so it just makes sense to do the under. I'm expecting a really low-scoring, boring game here.
Liz, can we sweep it?
No, we can't. You want someone to get aggressive, girl? Hello, it's me. I'm taking the over here. Do I think that Damian Harris, I don't think he needs 100 yards, and I think he needs 85. Do I think he gets 85 and a touchdown? I sure do. Against the Jets, who won't be able to fight back because they got Joe Flacco under center? Please, girl. Yes, they can do. The Jets are giving opposing running backs an average of 22 carries per game, and every time Damian Harris has touched the ball at least 15 times, managed 15 totes, because you're right about the passing game, he has gone over 100 yards. I'm taking the over on this one. It's going to be the only exciting part of Monday night.
Oh, I feel bad. I should have taken the over. It's 2020. Nobody should ever take the under. Okay, now our resident DFS expert, Tank, he's always balling on a budget. We know that. And he has this week's Daily Fantasy Savers presented by Chase Freedom Unlimited. With Chase Freedom Unlimited credit card, you can earn cash back on new categories like travel purchased through Chase, dining, and drugstores. So you're always earning. All right, take it away with your DFS value picks, Tank.
Yes, sir. What it do, baby? It's your favorite baller on the budget, T-Money, with my Week 9 value plays sponsored by Chase. Oh, I love it. All right, now at quarterback, we going with my man Derek Carr at $29. I already told you that. Who is he going against? Touchdown Jesus. Like, Justin Herbert has been on fire, and so all the money's on the Raiders. Why is the money on the Raiders? Josh Jacobs banged up. Derek Carr got a ball out. Man, this dude, Drew Lock, balled out against the Chargers defense last week. So if Derek Carr can't ball out against them, then maybe this is the ultimate jinx coming to me. Lord, please don't do it to me. But Derek Carr should be all in the money at $29. This should be an ultimate layup. Now at running back, I'm going with my man James Conner at $26. And why? What have we been talking about all show? He's going against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, everybody, they mama, they grandmama, and they sister cousin too, been stomping a mud hole in the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not expecting Big Ben to get off. He could, but the game is going to be so easy that all they're going to do is give this dude about 20 carries. He'll probably end up getting about 120, 130 yards and 2 tubs. And he's only $26 when you got Kamara and all these other guys priced up at $36. Do the right thing and put Conner in your lineup. And remember that little nugget I gave you, DJ Dallas, only $11. Now, at wide receiver, I'm going back to my man, John Smoke Brown. I'm expecting a shootout in Seattle. Like I said, the only quarterback that missed the layup against the Seattle secondary was Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Josh Allen does that. He's been a little slow lately, but I think he's going to heat up when the time is right. Like, if they're going to really make the playoffs and be the team that we expect them to be in the AFC East, now is the time. Shootout in Buffalo. Allen gets hot. Smoke smokes today. And at tight end, this one gets a little dicey. I'm going with Darren Fells at $12 against the Jaguars, because the Jaguars give up the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends. I understand Jordan Akins coming back. Tight end as a whole has been a little bit slippery. Actually, Liz gave you a good play with Logan Thomas. He's going to get a lot of targets. Not the best matchup, but he's only $12 as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things where there's a lot of cheap guys where you could throw darts at. If you want to be safe, Waller, go to Kelsey. But these guys in this price range, I think they may give you what you want. So remember, the T is for the money, but also make sure you check out the Chase Freedom Unlimited credit card so you can start earning cash back. That's that money on every purchase. So visit chasefreedom.com for more details. And now, producer Dan, show me that beautiful DFS footage. Now, my girl Minty came in and won her 2nd week of the DFS challenge, but those guys are still far behind me. And so I feel like as long as the producer confirms to me that no one can submit absentee Guru Challenge ballots, I think I'm gonna be good winning the Guru Challenge for 2020. But so as long as that's confirmed, I think we're straight. My man Andy's still way back, and I done beat Harmon head in so much he's just frozen right now.
The CNN decision desk has not called this.
and Matt, I think we should just stop counting. Well, Matt's not here to defend himself. And he's also not here to dispute his place in the Guru Challenge, but he couldn't miss out on filling us all in on what he doesn't care about. So here's this week's edition of Care, Don't Care.
Every week I drop you something that I absolutely do not care about heading into every week's slate of games. And here in week 9, I'm back with another NFC East heater, and I do not care that Kyle Allen is not good. And let's be clear, Kyle Allen is not good. As someone with a complicated relationship with the Carolina Panthers for several seasons, I'm aware. I was on the Kyle Allen is not good train before it was cool. But again, for fantasy, I don't care about that, because here's the important point. The last 2 starts that Kyle Allen has made when he's also finished the game, we remember the contest when he was replaced by Alex Smith. The players that we care about in Washington's offense have been producing. Terry McLaurin, the stud #1 upcoming superstar wide receiver, has 23 targets over the last 2 games with Kyle Allen. He's the second place guy on the team, has just 8. He also has 4 red zone targets and 2 strong fantasy outings to show for it. This guy is being treated like a top-end #1 receiver like Kyle Allen, which he is, so we are grateful to Kyle Allen for that. Also, Logan Thomas finally producing with all of that volume that we saw earlier in the year. 45% of his snaps have come in the slot, and he's produced 7 catches for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. in Allen's last 2 starts. And most importantly, perhaps, in the backfield, Antonio Gibson has a 24% share of the team's yards from scrimmage. That looks like a top-end number 1 back with a 10% target share and 4 red zone looks as well. The point here is, after those 3 guys, sure, J.D. McKissic is going to pop up every now and again, but we don't care about the rest of the Washington offense. There's no gold to mine after these 3 players, and that's fine. That's all we saw out of Kyle Allen last year. It was DJ Moore, it was Christian McCaffrey, and there was nothing else beyond that. That's who this guy is. Kyle Allen is that type of quarterback. He was that in Carolina. He's that in Washington. And you know what? That's good enough for us.
Let's check back in on Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. All right, this first one is from Stony. Welcome. He needs to know Matt Ryan, no Calvin Ridley, Derek Carr, a couple of O-line issues. Tank, you were high on Carr. Are you prioritizing him over Matty Ice?
Yeah, I like the matchup. The Chargers give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I've already talked about why I like Derek Carr, because he was cheaper than most of those quarterbacks, but he also has a really good matchup. I'm expecting a shootout there in LA, so that's why I'm going with my man, Derek Carr.
All right, I like it. Andy, I'm going to give this next one to you. These are players that we've talked about extensively on the Fantasy Football Forecast podcast. It's a question from Doug, and he needs to start 2 out of DJ Dallas, Leonard Fournette, or Justin Jackson. It is a PPR format.
The easy one for me here is going to be Justin Jackson. Again, he's coming off huge workload. Don't know if he's going to find the end zone in this one, but I do know that he's probably going to get 18-plus touches. And again, I expect a shootout of a game there. So Justin Jackson is a strong play. I didn't like much of what I saw from DJ Dallas. I know he scored twice, and that kind of saved the fantasy performance, but he's brutally inefficient. He didn't seem to know the playbook particularly well. That was a little clunky. We have the Alex Collins thing to worry about. So I'm actually going to go Leonard Fournette here. I'm pretty sure they're going to throw him the ball 5-6 times in this one. He did appear to leapfrog Ronald Jones for whatever that's worth in the backfield hierarchy. So it's not an ideal matchup against New Orleans, but I think he's going to get some receiving workload. So slightly into Fournette.
All right, Andy, I'm gonna send this next one to you. Again, it's from Larry. Devontae Parker, who will probably see a lot of Patrick Peterson, or Darnell Mooney, who I talked about in the fantasy damage. I'm interested in your take because we again talked on the pod about how we like Mooney, but maybe not Foles' protection enough to actually connect with Mooney.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of either of these options, I got to say. I kind of buried Parker in the ranks because I imagine he's going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson in this one. Young quarterback, probably going to shy away from the one bad matchup on the field. And it was like Preston Williams and the running backs that saw all of the targets last week from Tua. So I don't think I'm going to go Parker here. I'm gonna play Mooney. Like, they've taken deep shots to Mooney basically every week, and he always cooks some cornerback. Like, we saw him smoke Jalen Ramsey a couple weeks ago. Didn't amount to anything. It usually doesn't amount to anything because it's Nick Foles under duress making these throws. But man, when they finally connected last week, that was really good to see. Had a touchdown last week. The targets have been there lately. Like, he's a 6 to 8 target receiver week in and week out. So slight lean for me to Mooney.
I agree with you. He's averaged 6 targets since week 3. Also, if you don't like either of these guys, Larry, Preston Williams, who Andy just brought up, and this is in a standard scoring league, so you want someone with red zone appeal and touchdown potential, is only rostered in 18% of Yahoo leagues. So go out and grab him. There's an audible call for you. Tweet number 4, Brian asks, he needs to sit one in standard J.K. Dobbins, Justin Jackson, or DJ Chark. Woo! In standard, sitting one of these guys. Tank, I'm imagining you're starting Justin Jackson. So are you throwing the dart at DJ Chark, or sitting comfortably with J.K. Dobbins, knowing that maybe he gets vaulted by Edwards?
That's the thing. I don't think there's any comfort with Dobbins, and that's a matchup from hell right there. And you kind of sold me. Like, I don't know what to expect out of the quarterback in Jacksonville, but we know the upside of Chark if he can at least just give him the ball. And so just given the matchup, the predicted game flow where this could be a shootout if the quarterback is halfway competent, I would go with that, because I'm telling you, whether it's Dobbins or Edwards, they don't have anything going for them going against that Baltimore run defense. I mean, for
Okay.
that Indianapolis
All right.
defense. I honestly like all the running backs in this game, whether you're Indy or Baltimore, is tough sledding today because both teams give up the second fewest and the fewest points to fantasy running backs.
And we know what Char can do. I like that call. We've got two more here. This next one is from Alyssa. I think she might be a Broncos fan. It's a flex question in non-PPR. She's got Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, or Tim Patrick. Tank, you've been talking up Phillip Lindsay, but we know that Melvin Gordon has been the preferred back in scoring situations, but doesn't have the explosiveness. Like Lindsay can rip off a 20-something yard run, and there's a chunk gain. And then obviously Tim Patrick has been Drew Lock's number one. He had a hamstring issue previously, but now he's back on the field. Which of these three are you flexing?
I mean, it seems like Melvin Gordon is their guy. I mean, he gets the lion's share of the carries. They use him in the pass game. I think he'll be the guy in the red zone, so I'll go with him there. I think Phillip Lindsay may be the better matchup as far as going against the Atlanta pass run defense. And honestly, you want to target any wide receiver against the Atlanta pass defense. But Jerry Jeudy and all those targets that he got last week, I think that may just continue this week, and they ease Tim Patrick back in. So Uncle Melvin is that guy.
Uncle Melvin, last question. It is from Chad, and he has a question. It's a PPR, 1-point PPR format. It's a flex question. Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Crowder, Marquise Brown. Andy, we're going Hollywood on this one, right? Jamison Crowder banged up, probably Joe Flacco under center. Jerry Jeudy, I think actually Noah Fant might garner more looks in this one from Drew Lock, but Marquise Brown, we're expecting more than just 2 targets like he had last week because of the whole squeaky wheel situation, yes?
Yeah, I'm definitely going Hollywood Brown here. Again, he complained a little bit, like Lamar owned up to it, handled it really well. I expect him fully to receive, 6, 8, maybe 10 targets in this one. It's not an ideal matchup, but again, if Hollywood Brown is getting a half dozen targets, there's a very good chance that one of them becomes a long touchdown. I think he's the best option here. Like, Crowder's a weird player because on a per game basis, he's actually a wide receiver 1 so far this year, but it's a difficult matchup. He's tied to Joe Flacco. I just couldn't do it. I'm going Brown.
Well, Andy can't do it, but we are going to have to do something, and that's take another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, I'll check in with my friend Mauricio Gutierrez to dissect what's going on in some murky backfields. And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. We've got 8 games kicking off here at the top of the hour. Let's check in on our own feeds and see what folks want to know. Andy, who's asking you what?
Yeah, just here's an opportunity to bring up a situation that we haven't really discussed in detail on the show, and that's the Miami backfield this week. Jorge asking, I actually can't believe he put these 2 players in the same question, Todd Gurley or Jordan Howard. Okay, so Myles Gaskin is out. Matt Breida, who would have been the presumptive #1 running back for that team, is also out with injury. So that takes us down to Jordan Howard and like Patrick Laird, and it's going to be ugly. We can also assume that it's going to be negative game script, I think, for Miami, and they're chasing points against Arizona. Fun game. I don't want to be tied to that backfield in any way. And your other option is somebody, okay, fine, Todd Gurley isn't getting, 90% of the snaps and touches or anything, but man, when they get inside of the end zone, he is on the field. You have a much better chance, I think, of getting a touchdown or 2 out of Todd Gurley than you would Jordan Howard.
All right. Tank, what about you?
Yeah, so I got a tweet from Scott, and he was asking Juju or Antonio Gibson for the flex. And I already like to go running backs because I feel like they have a high floor. I understand why you may consider Juju because I've been talking about the smash spot that you have going against the Dallas Cowboys, but always remember when you're dealing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's going to get off? Is it Connor? Is it Juju? Is it Deontay Johnson? Is it Claypool? Is it Ebron? I mean, there's so many options, so I'd rather go with the guaranteed volume. At the same time, Antonio Gibson has a matchup where the Giants give up the 13 most points to fantasy running backs. Like, that's magically delicious. Antonio, baby.
Minty, do you have any magically delicious questions?
Not very delicious, but I got a DM from Kevin asking, great call on the Raiders upsetting the Browns last week, thank you. Who is your favorite underdog this week? I actually don't really like any underdogs this week to win outright, but if I had to choose, I would choose the Giants over the Washington football team, as they, the Giants looked pretty impressive against the Bucs last week, so I guess give me the Giants.
Oh, I don't know if I like that one. I got this question from Andrew J on Instagram.
That would sound like it tickled your soul.
Sorry.
Robbie Anderson, Will Fuller, or Marquise Brown, 3 very good options. Whoever helps you draft this team might know what they're doing. Robbie Anderson, I like the matchup. He's obviously been giving you a great floor. Will Fuller, talk about loving the matchup and talk about a floor. Dude scores in every single game he's on the field for. As much as I agree with Andy in terms of Marquise Brown getting a little more grease after squeaking last week, I think your safer options are Anderson and Fuller, so those are the 2 that I would start. All right, keep those tweets coming in. Our very own Scott Pianowski is still answering questions at the hashtag AskFFL all the way up until kickoff.
All right, time for our second set of fantasy face-offs. You know the drill. These are players who are very, very close together in the ranks. We're talking about 4 different pass catchers now. It's me, it's Liz. We're going to start with a pair of receivers. Again, very close in the ranks. I'm gonna argue for Brandon Cooks, but Liz, you like Darius Slayton, even though you apparently don't like his team.
Well, I mean, on balance. I do think that obviously Brandon Cooks has a great matchup, but if you're looking at consistent volume, Darius Slayton is the answer. I mean, he's 100% hamstrung by his quarterback, which is part of the problem, but nobody works his way back to the ball better and more consistently than Slayton. He's also found the end zone when the Giants last faced the Washington football team, so I think he is the safer option with more guaranteed red zone appeal.
Yeah, I get the case for him. I'm going to tie myself to Deshaun Watson in the Houston offense versus Daniel Jones in the Giants offense. Brandon Cooks, over his last 3 games, it's been 30 targets. So the volume has been there. And again, he's facing Jacksonville. Jacksonville's pass defense on the year, obviously terrible. They're bad against the run. They're bad against the pass. They give up about 8.5 yards per pass attempt on the season. So for me, that's just a slight lean to Cooks. I think he's going to see 8-10 targets in this one. That's going to result in a good day. Okay. Second set of players, it's a couple of tight ends, and I'm looking at Jonnu Smith. You're going to talk about Eric Ebron a little bit later. I'll get us started here. Jonnu Smith, let's try to remember the good times. First 4 weeks of the season, it was 5 touchdowns. He scored constantly every week. He was money. It's a minefield of a position. I get that. He's to me, he's just a little bit closer to the top of the receiving hierarchy than Eric Ebron is in Pittsburgh. We all like the matchup against Dallas, no question about it, but he's probably something like the fourth option in that receiving core, and they may only need him for 2 quarters.
I just haven't liked Jonnu Smith's consistency. You talk about the top of the season, and then he got hurt, and after he got hurt, it was Frisker and then Corey Davis, and I'm not sure that Smith is 100% back to health, so I'm pushing the pause button on him and instead leaning towards a tight end who is absolutely getting looks. I mean, he scored last week. Week before that, had 4 red zone looks. He and Ben obviously have a bond, and you talk about the matchup, it's absolutely money, so I like Ebron a tad more.
Yeah, I can't really complain about it. Got them both inside my top 10 at the position.
Welcome to Week 9's edition of the Fantasy Community Corner. That's what I'm calling it, at least. And I am very excited for our guest this Sunday. It is Mauricio Gutierrez. Mo, bienvenido.
Hi, Liz. Muchas gracias. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Por supuesto, amigo. Okay, so Mo, tell everyone, we're obviously speaking in Spanish to one another. You and I know each other personally. We've spoken in Spanglish plenty of times. Can you tell our viewers who you are, what you're doing, and why it is so unique?
Well, I'm a fantasy analyst for 5 years now. I founded the Stadio Fantasy. It was my individual project. And then this year I started to create content to NFL in Espanol directly. We are doing 4 articles a week, 3 videos. So if you're interested, go ahead and check it out.
Obviously, the Spanish-speaking market is growing exponentially. Latinos love the NFL, but you also, at least on social media, offer up your takes in English and Spanish. So if people want to go follow you on social media, they could do that at mgutierrezNFL, right?
Yeah, some of my stuff in social media, I do it in English.
So I wanted to showcase the themes that you are writing about. What's the fantasy tendency that's been hardest for you to diagnose heading into this particular week?
Normally in my tendency article, I try to focus on the backfields. For me, it's been hard to determine what is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs backfield moving forward. We have seen that in 2 weeks with Le'Veon Bell, well, the rookie has handled, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has handled 53% of the snaps, 40% of the touches. He's running more routes than Le'Veon Bell. I know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the lead running back here, but how much? You know, Le'Veon Bell is going to take away some touches, some opportunities, the line goal, touchdown. So it's been really hard for me to determine this.
Well, in a matchup against the Panthers in Week 9, you have to imagine there'll be enough opportunity for both of these running backs to eat, though, right?
Yeah, both. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for me, it's a top 12 option, and Le'Veon Bell, a solid running back too.
Let's discuss New England's backfield. Which way are you leaning? We actually talked already in the show about Damian Harris.
Yeah.
Are you standing for Harris as well?
Are we ready to that this backfield is not going to be a headache moving forward? I mean, Damian Harris, 2 of the last 4 games with 100+ yards on the ground, right? I know that Sonny Michel probably is going back, but can we trust Sonny Michel? He's been pedestrian all his seasons in the NFL. If we took away that 100-yard game in week 3, the last one he played, he's averaging 3.6 yards per carry. That's awful. And I think Bill Belichick has to go with his best players available right now because of the situation in the Patriots. And probably Harris is being the lone bright spot in this offense, in the whole offense.
Also, Harris heading into the season got a lot of publicity and good buzz during training camp before he hurt himself and then missed time at the top of the season. I'm also a little bit frustrated by his lack of usage in the receiving game, especially when we saw at Alabama that he has the ability to work out of the backfield as a receiver.
Yeah, that's the thing that concerned me the most, and that obviously limits his upside, right?
Right, the ceiling there, because you've got James White and Rex Burkhead catching passes. But maybe after the past couple of weeks, some of that will shift, especially with Julian Edelman's injury taking him out of the mix for a minute. So I'm with you. Let's keep an eye on Harris. Thank you, Mauricio, so much. Can you remind everyone one more time where they can find your work and I don't know. Leave us with something good. We could use it.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here and honored. You can catch me at mgutierrezNFL. Muy buena vibra para todos, amigos.
Perfecto, gracias. All right, let's get back to some flex questions and make some picks for our viewers. Our first question comes in from Justin, and Justin wants to know Antonio Brown, Malcolm Brown, that guy's on a bye. So DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, or Deontay Johnson. Pick one. Tank, it's you and me. So we're going DJ Moore, right? And then which of these second options?
We got one or two.
We got to pick two.
And we have
so I
to
think
go
we're both in agreement. We're going to go DJ Moore,
DJ
right?
Moore is automatic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the Pittsburgh, whack-a-mole. We know one guy's on bye, so hey, looking like DJ Moore, Mr. Big Chest, holla.
Oh, you think so? Out of curiosity, if you had to choose between Claypool and Deontay Johnson, Johnson theoretically healthy again, right, back on the field, which of these two would you prioritize? I'm curious.
Actually, I think Deontay Johnson is going to pull the Trevon Diggs card, and if that's the case, then he could be in for a blow-up spot. I think that you can almost guarantee volume for AB this week, given the Godwin injury. Scotty Miller was a little bit hampered, that they like to throw the deep targets to Mike Evans, so that's why I'm leaning AB here. But if you want to choose out of those two Pittsburgh wide receivers, I think Deontay Johnson could go off.
Okay, I don't disagree. Let's go to one more tweet. It's from Amanda. She's in a standard league. Pick two: DJ Chark, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Christian Kirk. For me, it's Chark and the Torch, as Matt Harmon has named him, Christian Kirk. Do you disagree, Tank?
I think I have to go with you because it's hard for me to. All right, there we go. Corey Davis, I don't like that matchup against the Bears. Jameson Crowder, I don't think I mean, he was balling out earlier this year, but I don't even want to touch the Jets, especially not against the Patriots. So I think, this is the layup. Christian Kirk, DJ Chark.
All right. Well, those are some flex questions we answered. Now it's time to take our final break here on Fantasy Football Live, but don't forget, Yahoo was rated the best fantasy sports app by the Fantasy Sports Gaming Association in 2019. Check out this week's top fantasy pickups and award-winning insight on the Yahoo Fantasy app today. We'll get to more of your roster questions when we come back. Just a few minutes here left on Fantasy Football Live, so let's get to some of those last-minute questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This one is from MT, and MT wants to know, James White, Christian Kirk, or Chris Godwin, half-point PPR. I am saying Christian Kirk. Andy, do you disagree?
No, I do not disagree. I was going to go Christian Kirk as well. Obviously, Godwin was drafted in a spot where you feel pretty terrible about sitting him, but I want to give especially if I have good options like Christian Kirk. I just want to have a look at what this receiving core looks like now that they've added Antonio Brown, because again, I expect Brown to see a whole bunch of targets right away. So that backs me off Godwin a little bit. I would go Kirk as well.
All right, Minty, this next one is for you, and it is from Brad. Brad wants to know, who do you like this week in the early slate of games?
Ooh, well, I really like the Ravens here. I got them at a pick'em. They're now favored by a point and a point and a half. I still think they can blow out the Colts, maybe. I also really like the under 44 for the Steelers game, and I have a little money on the Panthers plus 10 against the Chiefs as well.
Tank, I'm going to give you this next one because it involves your cousin. It is from Packers Nation. Do I start Antonio Brown over Mike Williams in the wide receiver spot? Can he possibly sit your cousin in favor of Big Chest?
Hell no. My cousin has perfect weather. He has touchdown Jesus as quarterback. He's getting a bunch of targets down the field. And the game floor is going to be amazing there in LA. So, yeah, you got to go with my cousin in this one.
Okay, we got another one here, and it is from Caps of the North. Cap wants to know, Leonard Fournette or J.K. Dobbins, full point PPR league, which is good to know. I have Mike Evans to worry about and two players from the same team. Andy, I love your takes. I think you are always very, very mindful about the backfield in Baltimore. So which way are you leaning here?
Yeah, there's been a lot of enthusiasm about Dobbins, and long term, I think rightfully so, right? He's a great talent. They obviously drafted him to be the future of the position and all that, but they want to run in committee. Like, that's just what they do. It was a three-headed committee before. Now it's down to two. That's better. But as Tank was discussing earlier, it's a really messy matchup this week against Indianapolis. No guarantees we're going to see, many receptions for Dobbins, certainly, because they don't throw to the backs a whole lot. And they like to run Gus Edwards out on the field in goal line situations. So I'm actually going Fournette here. In a PPR league, I know you've got Mike Evans. Maybe you don't feel good about that, but in a PPR league, PPR of any sort, I want the guy who I'm fairly confident is going to see at least a half dozen targets.
All right, this is going to be our last question. Tank, it's going to you, so get those ears ready. Brett wants to know Marvin Jones without Kenny Golladay on the field or Marquise Brown. Both of these bros are squeaky, but which one is getting the grease?
Yeah, I know y'all I know Rev been talking about Hollywood Brown, the squeaky wheel, but he actually has a pretty tough matchup going against that Colts defense. I like Marvin Jones here, no Kenny Golladay. I think, you have to worry about Hockenson getting targeted a lot in the red zone, but as far as wide receivers, I know you talked up Marvin Hall, and he could have a game today, but I really like Marvin Jones, especially compared to what we've seen out of that Baltimore pass offense to date. So, Marvin.
Very leveled answer. I appreciate that, Tank. Thank you so much. Andy, it's almost kickoff, so what's buzzing in the chat? What kind of emojis are you seeing?
Yeah, checking the chat over here. Aaron writes in, this is a pretty simple question. Is it time to bench Zeke? I discussed that earlier. I think it may be time to bench Zeke. Not like for the full season or anything like that, but it's Pittsburgh. They're a very difficult run defense. He's hurt. Dallas has stopped scoring points entirely over the last 3 weeks, so I'm not particularly interested in Zeke Elliott in this one if you have reasonable options. I flagged a question earlier here from Derek because I wanted Liz to have a chance to give her thoughts on one of the players involved here. Derek needs a quarterback. The options are Kirk Cousins, and when is it ever a bad time to start Kirk Cousins? Nick Foles or Drew Lock?
Oh, if you're asking me, it's never not Swaggy Drew. And yes, I'm even a Bears fan. How can you not love Locke coming off of what he did last week and facing the defense that he is facing in Atlanta? To me, this look, and as you mentioned earlier, Andy, getting all of those healthy pieces back on the field. So I like Locke's potential a lot here.
Yeah, I love it. I think Locke is definitely the right answer here. It's definitely the highest upside answer as well. One last question. This one from a different Aaron with a whole bunch of emojis, some of which I don't even recognize. Half PPR, Mike Evans, Chase Claypool, or Antonio Brown. Tank, how do you feel about that crew?
Oh, wow. I think I have to go with, oh man, it's tough. It's between AB and Claypool. We don't know what to think about AB. I know I've been telling folks not to pick the Pittsburgh wide receivers, but man, go Claypool. The dude is balled out. He scored 4 touchdowns in one game. Only Al Bundy has done that. Claypool, let's get it, baby.
Yeah, I love it. I think I'd go Claypool here as well over the confusion of the Tampa Bay receiving corps.
All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thanks for kicking off your NFL Sunday with us. Remember, you can connect with us all week long on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast. That is our podcast, Mad Bets Daily on Yahoo Sports. And, of course, back here every single Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all your fantasy teams and Drew Lock in Week 9, and we will see you next Sunday.